Okay, today we're going to be solving our quadratics using the quadratic formula. So first, let's review factoring by grouping. We have to use grouping because our first term is not 1 and it cannot be divided out. So how to solve this? I'd make sure everything is set equal to 0. Everything's on one side of the equal sign. I'll label my A 5, B -7, C -6. Using the x method, I have A times C at the top. So 5 times -6 is -30. And at the bottom, we have -7. Now, two numbers that multiply to -30, add to -7 would be -10 and +3. I'm going to then split my middle term. So I'll drop down 5x squared. I'll split my middle term into -10x and a +3x. And then drop down the -6. Next step would be to group. So this is our parenthesis party. First two together, last two together, plus sign between them. Okay, a 5 and a 10 can both be divided by 5. And x squared and x means I can take out an x. We have a 5x squared divided by 5x, that's a 1x. -10 divided by 5 is -2. X divided by x cancel. Our next binomial, 3x minus 6, they're both divisible by a 3. 3x divided by 3 is a 1x. -6 divided by 3 is a -2. Now that these match, I know I'm okay to move on. I'm going to factor out the match, x minus 2, and I'm left with 5x plus 3. This is all set equal to 0. If it just said factor, we'd be done. But next we need to solve. So we're going to set both binomials equal to 0 separately and solve for x. So add 2, x equals 2. Next one, subtract 3, 5x equals -3. Divide by 5, so x equals -3 fifths. Now, sometimes having a decimal answer is acceptable. So if I were to divide -3 divided by 5, I would get -0.6. So either would be an acceptable answer. Okay. Now, sometimes we need to use a different method. If we can't use the x method, we can't find our factors. We can't find our factors that multiply to -30, add to -7. Then the quadratic formula is a good fallback method. And sometimes you have to use the quadratic formula. So our steps here are to set everything equal to 0 and label your A, B, and C. So same first step. So let's look. A equals 5, B equals -7, C equals -6. It's the same problem. I'm going to show you a secondary method to use. Quadratic formula here, we have our A, our B, and our C. Right, that's standard form. The quadratic formula is x equals -b plus or minus. So that's two problems written in one. Plus or minus b squared minus 4 times a times c, all divided by 2a. Now, every letter here should be in parentheses when you're plugging these in. Okay, it's showing multiplication and it's grouping it together. So let's go ahead and over on our first example, let's solve using the quadratic formula. So I have x equals a big fraction. Negative, and then my b term. My b is -7. Plus or minus a big square root. My b term, -7, square that. Minus 4 times our a, which is 5, times our c, which is -6. I'm going to divide all of that by 2 times a, which is 5. Okay. I want to simplify this in chunks. So I have x equals. So simplify everything underneath the radical. So I'm going to also simplify out front. So negative 7. That's negative 1 times negative 7, which is positive 7. Plus and minus. Everything underneath this radical, I'm going to put into my calculator. So I have parentheses, negative 7, close parentheses, squared. It's the button diagonal from your 7. It might be next to your 7 on your calculator. Minus 4, parentheses, 5, close parentheses, open parentheses, negative 6. Make sure the number in front of this 7 is a negative sign. In front of the 4 should be a minus sign. And in front of the 6 should be a negative sign. Yes, it does matter. So I get 169. So let's bring it back over here. Underneath the radical is 169. And then I have 2 times 5 underneath the fraction. That's 10. Step 4 says solve addition and subtraction separately. So as you notice, when we started this, we had a plus or minus right here. So that is 2 different problems. So that is 7 plus square root of 169 over 10, and 7 minus square root of 169 over 10. 2 separate problems. I will get 2 answers here. So in my calculator, I'm going to click my N over D, which you should have on your calculator. Mine just looks a little bit different. In the top of my fraction, I have 7 plus square root of, so I'm going to press second and then x squared, 169. And then tap in the bottom of my fraction and I'm typing in 10. Enter. And my answer is 2. Now I want to do the subtraction version of this problem. So I'm going to press second, enter. I can just do the whole thing again. So I have, whoops. Let me clear this out. So I have 7 minus square root of 169 divided by 10. And I get negative 0.6 as my second answer. Okay. So remember, those 2 answers are where our parabola crosses the x-axis at 2 and negative 0.6, so maybe something around here. So the quadratic formula comes in handy when one of our solutions is not a whole number or a rational number. So let's take a look. This next one, we have a graphic organizer for you. So the problem is here. 4x squared plus 8x minus 5. Our a value is 4. Our b value is 8. Our c value is negative 5. Plugging into our formula, you can see the formula over here, and we're going to plug right into the individual spots. So negative and then our b, 8. Plus and minus 8 squared minus 4 times our a, which is 4, times our c, negative 5. All divided by 2 times a, which is 4. Now let's break this down. So I have negative times 8, that's negative 8, plus and minus square root of. In my calculator, I would type this in. So take a second and practice typing it in. 8 squared, make sure you use parentheses, minus 4, parentheses, 4, close parentheses, open parentheses, negative 5. You should get 144. And the denominator, 2 times 4 is 8. Now you might think like, oh, I have an 8 on bottom and on top. I can just simplify those both. You cannot. They do not reduce like that. So next I have negative 8 plus square root of 144 divided by 8. And I have negative 8 minus square root of 144 divided by 8. So I have negative 8, negative 8 plus square root 144 over 8. So 2.5. And in the question, I do believe I said round to the nearest tenth if necessary. We didn't have to, but 2.5 is good. Pause the video and try the second part on your own. So we have the subtraction version. And on this one, we just get 0.5. Oh, I'm realizing in mine, I forgot to put the negative sign with the 8. So negative 8 plus square root 144 divided by 2. Nope, divide by 8. Goodness. Negative 8 plus square root 144 over 8. Should get 0.5 for the addition version. And I will get negative 2.5 for the other version. Sorry, that was my dog. Okay. So let's try the next problem. So if we look at the next question, we have to decide what is wrong here. So I have 2x squared minus 5x plus 5. And then I have x squared plus 5x minus 20. So in order to actually find my a, b, and c, everything has to be on one side of the equation. So I'm going to move everything to the left side. So minus 1x squared minus 5x and add 20. I'm making sure I'm stacking these underneath the like terms. And now I can start combining. So 2 minus 1 would be 1x squared. Negative 5x minus 5x is negative 10x. And then 5 plus 20 is 25. Okay, now I'm ready to identify my a, that's 1. My b is negative 10, and my c is 25. So my equation, if you want to write it in here, it's x squared minus 10x plus 25 equals 0. All right, so I have negative b first, negative, and then my negative 10. Plus and minus square root of my b squared, so negative 10 squared, minus 4 times 1 times 25, all divided by 2 times a, which is 1. Okay, so next step, simplify this in chunks. I have x equals negative 10, that's positive 10, plus and minus square root of negative 10 squared minus 4 times 1 times 25, that comes out to 0. All divided by 2 times 1, which is just 2. Okay, next step is to split this up. So I have 10 plus square root 0 divided by 2. and 10 minus square root 0 divided by 2. Well, what is the square root of 0? Square root of 0 is 0, so I have 10 plus 0, that's just 10 over 2, which is 5. And in the second problem, second portion here, I have x equals 10 minus square root 0, so that's 10 minus 0 again, which is 10 divided by 2, so x is 5. So we really come out to one answer, x equals 5. Why do we this time have one solution? Well, that's because our parabola crosses the x-axis, but really just kind of touches the x-axis and turns back the other direction. This is the special case problem. Next question. Okay, example 4. Everything is set equal to 0, so we are good to go and start labeling our a, b, and c. So in my equation here, 3a squared plus 27a equals 0. The a value is 3. The b value, 27. C, I don't have a constant back here, so c would be 0. So let's plug that in. Negative, and then our b. Plus and minus. B squared, 27 squared, minus 4 times a, which is 3, times c, which is 0, all divided by 2 times a, which is 3. Okay, simplify this in chunks. We have negative times 27, which is negative 27, plus and minus square root of 27 squared minus 4 times 3 times 0. Put it in your calculator. So 27 squared minus 4 times 3 times 0. 729. All divided by 2 times 3, which is 6. So I'm going to split this up into two problems. I have x equals negative 27 plus square root 729 divided by 6. And the subtraction part, so negative 27 minus square root 729 divided by 6. Okay, so I've got, using my n over d button, negative 27 plus square root of 729, and in the denominator, 6. That's 0. Okay, so x is 0. And the subtraction version, I would retype it. I have a shortcut on this calculator that I don't have to retype. But I do need to. I just messed it up. I need to make this a subtraction. Well, let's go alpha. Negative 27 plus square root of 729. Oh, goodness. Minus square root of. Divided by 6. Negative 9. There's my two solutions. We got one more together. I really encourage you to pause your video and try to solve this one out on your own and then check using the video. Okay, so my first step, I want to get everything to one side. So I'm going to subtract 2x squared, subtract 2x, subtract 16 on both sides. On the left-hand side, 7 minus 2 is 5x squared. Negative 10 minus 2 is negative 12x. 1 minus 16 is negative 15. Okay, everything's on one side. So I have 5x squared minus 12x minus 15. Okay, next is label your A, B, and C. Your A is 5, B is negative 12, C is negative 15. Lastly, plug it in. So x equals negative b plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4ac, all divided by 2a. So negative, and then this first blank is my b, negative 12. Plus and minus, negative 12 squared. Minus 4 times 5 times negative 15, all divided by 2 times a, which is 5. So x equals negative 12, that's positive 12. Plus and minus. Negative 12 squared minus 4 times 5 times negative 15. So we have negative 12 squared. It's important that I put parentheses around the negative 12. Minus 4 times 5 times negative 15. Enter. 444. All divided by 2 times 5, which is 10. Next step, split this up into the addition problem and the subtraction problem. Okay, let's tackle the addition problem first. So I'm going to do my N over D button. I have 12 plus square root of 444 divided by 10. Enter. 3.307. So in the notes, I asked you to round to the nearest tenth. So this second 3 here is in the tenths place, and the 0 is in the hundredths. So I look to the 0. The 0 says keep it a 3. So my answer would be 3.3. Now the subtraction problem. So I'm going to duplicate and make this subtraction. I get negative 0.90. So the second 0 after the 9 tells the 9 to stay the same. 5 or above, we round up. So that is negative 0.9. That's our last question. If you memorize this formula and recite it to me next week, I will give you extra credit towards a homework assignment.